Hello and welcome back to the Saints Squadro. I'm your Dylan Sanders of Pelicans Roundtable in Saints Wire, and oh yeah, baby, first win, and I'm drinking that Kool-Aid.
I'm Darian Gray of Who Dat Dish, and rumor has it Dilly needs Monarch Money after betting against the Saints.
Okay, enough of that.
This is former Saints wide receiver Lance Moore, and I feel like a winner today.
It's the Saints Squad. Everything New Orleans Saints, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from down in the Big Easy, the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Saints Squad Show, starting now.
Hello. Well, howdy, Who Dat Nation. Welcome back to the Saints Squad Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen every Sunday and Wednesday. We have a unique group of experts here ready to bring you a fun and informative show on everything New Orleans Saints. Today, I wonder what we're going to be talking about. Oh, yeah, the Saints just won a football game. We're going to be talking offense, defense, interactions, players of the game, stuff like that, all that fun. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. New Orleans Saints win and win. They pick up the win. It's 1-4. Spencer Rattler's no longer 0 for 10. They can't use that stat anymore. You know, it's a fun win. Kellen Moore's first win. Let's jump into it with our instant reactions, and let's start off with Lance. Well, how are you feeling after the Saints win?
You know, I feel pretty good. And sure, a win, makes you feel good. But to me, how this win materialized is even more important than the actual win itself. How this game started out with the Giants going right down the field and scoring back-to-back touchdowns. And I think they had said it on the Gamecast that, like, the first time in a bunch of years that they scored touchdowns on their first two the first two drives of a game. It's been a long time, and it wasn't looking great. But the response of the team to continue to play, to continue to work, Kellen Moore calling a great game. I believe that this team, in order to win a lot more games, is going to have to score touchdowns in the red zone. We can't be going and kicking field goals, especially with the kicker that isn't kicking the ball very well yet again. But the response to me of how they were after the game started kind of as ugly as it did. And the Giants looked like they could do no wrong early in this game. The defense kind of hunkered down. They continued to play. They didn't give up any big plays late in the game. And obviously being able to turn the ball over the way that they did, I think it was a great recipe for this team to get back home in the Dome in front of the fans and to play a complete game, which they did. And the result was 26-14. I think it could have been worse. It should have been worse considering, we won 5-0 in the turnover. But all in all, to me, the response of how this team reacted after how it started is just as important as going and winning this game.
And it's kind of who did it. You look at the defense, and it was the young stars. Demario Davis forced that one fumble, but it was Jonas Sinker that picked it up. It was Jordan Howden running it back. It was Kool-Aid with the 2 interceptions. It was the right people making the right moves at the right time. It wasn't just, another game where the defense was able to rely on Demario Davis and Cam Jordan and the vets to do their part, but it was the younger players that were getting picked apart. No, the young players answered and had the right resolve, and I think it was the perfect way to win this game for this team. Darian, how you feeling?
I'm a little bit surprised by Lance's answer. I thought that would have been what I would have said. So I'm going to say what I thought Lance would say. Finally, a deep shot, right? Like we came on here on Wednesday and we talked about it a few times. So I thought that was going to be the first thing out of his mouth, not just because he said it, but come on now, former Saints wide receiver. I thought he was going to focus on Rashid Shaheed. So I'll do that. It felt great to finally see an explosive play by the Saints. It felt good to finally see a deep shot connect and there be room to run afterwards. I felt like not only was it refreshing to see I would have to go back and look at the multitude of deep shots that Shaheed has caught over the last couple of years, but it feels like a lot of times it's either a straight down the field or it's more of an in-breaking route. To see him catch this one on a corner as opposed to a post, it was a little bit new, but hey, we predicted, excuse me, that there would be a deep shot in this game. I think Lance said 2 of them. I think Ross said maybe 1 and then another touchdown. And I thought it was specifically going to be one on Paulson Adebo, but there was something in the air. There was the idea that the Saints needed to do it, and they did it. And we'll get into the response, right? The Saints were 0-4. We expected them to go 0-4 in the first quarter of the season. This was the opportunity to get your first win. But not only that, it felt like the tide began to turn. It felt like the temperament, despite playing the Bills close, it felt like things began to get a little bit more pessimistic, specifically around the quarterback position. So for Rattler to come in and have a solid game, for him to have a deep shot that everybody's been looking for out of him, I thought that this was, like Lance pointed out, a phenomenal response, not only inside the game where you get down big early. I was interested to see how they would perform in that, but it was a response to everything that's happened in the first 4 weeks. This was a really strong game, and we'll see what happens the next 2. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to look too far forward. Let's just enjoy today. Let's enjoy the win. And I think that this was a win that should be enjoyed.
Yeah, it's just it's good to have some positive momentum. You know, we talked about it. This was the game. If you drop this game, kind of the wheels kind of start to fall off, because then when does your first win come? If not against a young New York Giants team, and then decisions start being made, people start getting traded. The team could look a lot differently later on this year because the Saints did, pick up this win, pick up some momentum, and it'll be interesting. Obviously, it's a weird spot of where you don't want to win too many games to put yourself out of, getting a great pick, but you don't want to lose every game because then it feels like the team has no momentum going forward. Like it's hard to build off of that. So, it's interesting. I think that this was the perfect time and a perfect spot for them to pick up a win.
Yeah. And look, yeah, it's of all of the games that they've had thus far, this one was the most winnable. I mean, Darian said that, like, this was the game for them to win. And I mean, yes, I love the big play. I mean, 87-yard touchdown pass is great. No matter how you chop it up and try to break it down, like that's great. But it showed me something today about this team and their will, their determination, and their resolve. I mean, they could have, you're an 0-4 football team, you're down 14-3 at home, and it's not looking up. Like, they could have packed it in for sure. And this could have gotten ugly because, I mean, New York looked almost unstoppable those first couple of drives. So, like, that's to me is why it just kind of stood out a little bit more than the one big play. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about Spencer Rattler as the show goes on, but if he can hit one of those a game, I mean, I think defenses, they have to play you completely different. I mean, it just, like, sure, you got to try them, but like being able to complete those deep balls and pick up chunk yards on plays, it just makes things so much easier. I mean, as we saw, I mean, 0 for 3 in the red zone today. It's not like this team is cooking with gas once they get close to the end zone, right?
Yeah.
Like being able to get those big chunk plays and hopefully touchdowns, like that one was from Shaheed, like that's just going to help this offense to continue to grow and to continue to get space to operate as the season goes along. And hopefully this is one that they can build from. Again, I agree with Dylan. Like, it's a very fine line that you're playing in the middle of a rebuild where, sure, you want to play well. Sure, you play every game to win, but you don't necessarily want to win a bunch of games based on where you are and where you think that you're going to go in this season and beyond. But I mean, as a fan myself, I'll take one today. Like it had been too long. I mean, I think they said early December last year. So yes, it was about time. And this was the perfect opponent for, this game to be able to happen today.
And look, Lance, you played in the golden era of Saints football, right? Like, you played in a time where we weren't thinking about the draft in 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Right.
I'll say this. I feel like, yes, you want to make sure you're walking that fine line, but you also don't want people dejected 5 weeks into the season. You
Correct.
also don't want people to check out this
Absolutely.
early. So though you may not want to win a lot of games because you want draft positioning, and I'm sure a lot of the players or any of the players aren't really thinking that, but from a fan perspective, you want that. But at the same time, you want to watch good football too. And I think that that line has to be walked, because if you start to just lose all your games early, you're not going to get competitive football as much. You're going to get players who are checking out. You're going to get all of these negative aspects. And sometimes I think we look at it as you could get one or not the other. Man, if the Saints came out and lost this game, the way it looked like it was going to happen early, it looked like it was going to be an ugly loss, not just a loss, but an ugly one. You lose like that, I think there begins to be a question of morale. And then now you go against the Patriots and you looking dejected and people don't want to be out there. And now all the conversations we had in, I guess, the week leading up to today, they're louder. Do you trade Granderson? What about Olave? Is he like, all these conversations are silenced for 30 minutes. They're silenced for an hour. We just get to sit back and enjoy this game. So I do want to look at the other side of losing this matchup when we're talking about draft positioning.
Well, one conversation I don't think this win is gonna turn away is the conversation around moving Kamara at some point, because they pick up the win. He doesn't have a huge impact in this game. Kendre Miller looks better and better each week, and I think that's something that they could start to consider. But that's a tough conversation, because again, the money, the value of trading him, about where you actually going to get back, because the team's probably not going to really give up too much. So it becomes a confusing conversation. But some people will still definitely be pushing for that. I've seen some people in the chat already pushing for that. So that's going to be an interesting one. But yeah.
You know what? I'll say this is interesting. You go through the numbers, right? And I thought Kendre had some big time runs on maybe the second to last drive where you really get to see it. But stat wise, I thought that the Saints were going to be way more dominant in the run game than they were. I thought that was going to be a stronger recipe to their success than it was. And when you win in unconventional ways, it's another reason to be optimistic. This game had a lot of reasons for optimism. And the fact that the Saints came out and I thought they made more plays through the air. I thought some of the ball placement by Spencer Rattler was a little bit better. And quite frankly, you just did not run the ball with dominance when everybody thought that was your way to winning. You didn't. Let's see, did Rattler get sacked at all?
No.
He had no sacks on the day, and you're talking about a pass rush that has Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns. You talk about an interior that has Darius Alexander, has Dexter Lawrence. You have some guys on that front line, and you dropped back more than 20 times. And there was some times where he had to run, but he never got brought down for a sack. This was a underrated part of the game, I think, walking out of. And I'll see what the chat's saying, but I don't think that many people are going to talk about how clean that Spencer Rattler was in this game.
I think something that we're sure clean game, no turnovers, no sacks. I think one thing that's could possibly get kind of glossed over in a win like this is the fact that play to Rashid Shaheed was the only Saints offensive touchdown. That's problematic, right? The other touchdown was a defensive touchdown, and the only other scoring that the Saints had was field goals. So when you're playing against a better team, that sure, +5 in the turnover ratio is a part of the recipe. But at some point, this team is going to have to start scoring touchdowns offensively to win games, like starting next week, because New England can score. They've got a quarterback that can throw it. They've got good, solid defense. If we're not able to score touchdowns, I just don't see this team. You can't rely on the big play. It's not like we're going to go out there and have 4 87-yard bombs for touchdowns every week. You got to be able to put drives together and finish them in the end zone, as opposed to your kicker that's 2 for 3 on average through the season. It just, to me, I don't think, sure, it's great to win. You win by 2 scores, but I think we have to take a little bit of a magnifying glass to how the game was won and what it looks like once you break it down. One offensive touchdown, I don't think any offensive coordinator or head coach is going to walk in and be super excited about that performance, even though it was clean. There was no fumbles, no interceptions, no sacks. Love to see it. And they won. But it's good that happens in a win rather than a loss.
You know, I'm sure we'll get to that when we talk about the offense. Actually, I agree with you. That is a point that's going to get glossed over. So let's try to make sure when we get to the offense that we do dive into it a little bit more detail, because that's a phenomenal point.
Yeah, I did. I switched it up a little bit today because I wanted to go, keep the vibes rolling. So we're going to jump into defense first this week. Have some fun, talk about the turnovers and stuff like that, because I definitely feel like there's definitely more questions to raise about the offense, and then we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But coming up next, let's touch on the defense and those 5 turnovers that led to the victory. This episode is brought to you by Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood. You know, these are the places that become an extension of home, whether it's a sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in the town on game day, the beloved local chain that's been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together. Take this ad as an excuse to go support your favorite local spot and have yourself a day in the neighborhood. One of my favorite spots in New Orleans happens to run on Square. It's the Urban South Brewery. It's a cool place to, meet up with friends, enjoy new flavors of drinks, have fun with some old favorites, and then they have a bunch of fun local food vendors to take advantage of as well. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. All right, let's get to the defense. Get to these 5 turnovers. Darian, why don't you start us off with your defensive takeaways in this one?
I was surprised with how versatile that the turnovers were. I was surprised with how many players were involved. It wasn't just one guy. It wasn't just the older veterans. It was the youth. It was a mixture of everything. Demario Davis forcing a fumble that was then recovered by Jonas Sanker. Brian Brzee forcing the fumble that was then recovered in return for a touchdown by Jordan Howden. Cam Jordan recovering the fumble that was forced by, Chase Young. And whoever that was that knocked out the ball.
It was nobody. He just fumbled it on his own. So maybe it was Chase Young. The ghost of Chase Young.
The ghost of Chase Young.
We're talking about energy. Let me take a brief pause. This might have been the first time in years, and I mean legitimately first time in years, that I heard the "Who Dat" chants through the TV. Mm-hmm. I don't remember the last time I heard the fans chanting "Who Dat" through the TV. Gosh, and that was almost more refreshing than the score itself. All right, anyway, back to this defense. There was so many Kool-Aid McKinstry after really not having a strong quarter, after all of the preseason hype, and it feels like, everybody, man, what was the hype about? We didn't get to see it. And now that we do see him, we're not seeing it. And he got 2 interceptions. He had a nice pass breakup. Jonas Sanker looks good. Terrell Burgess has a play downfield where he doesn't panic. He has to recover after what I thought was a good fake by the Giants. Burgess rushes down there and swats away a pass that was slightly underthrown. What you saw was a defense performing the way I felt like they should play against a young quarterback making his second start. If he's going to make mistakes, you have to capitalize. So if he's going to underthrow a trick play, you can't bail him out by running into the receiver all the way down the field. If he's going to throw at your top corner, you have to make him pay as Kool-Aid McKinstry, right? Like, these are situations that I don't know if I thought the Saints would take advantage of coming into this game. So I was refreshed by seeing it. I feel like I've said the word refreshed about 5 times. So, but that's really how I feel coming out of this game.
Yeah. I guess this is kind of how I still kind of thought the game would go over. It was I figured the Saints defense would be the stronger part of the game. I had my questions about the offense, cashing in on those opportunities. And I think I still remain right. They really didn't, all those field goals, but we'll get to that a little bit. Overall, there's a great day for the defense. Great day for Brian Brzee. Shout out to Brian Brzee. That is so he had a great day in the run game, which might be the first time that we said that during his NFL career. But he did, and he had a great all-around day. Alante Taylor, something I want to shout out. We love our pro football focused stats on this post-game show. Alante Taylor, 0 missed tackles today. Mm-hmm. What a great sign for him. That's been a struggle for him. And he had 7 tackles. He had 4 stops in the run game. 0 missed tackles. Great. The Saints defense as a whole did still have 10, which is not great, but so they're still averaging over 10 per week. But yeah, I think it was a little bit better this week, especially considering Cam Scadaboo. He only had a couple of those runs where, it felt like no one could get him down.
Well, but even in those 10 missed tackles, they didn't look as bad, if that even matters, right? Like in the first 4 weeks of the season, it just looked really, really bad. Missing tackles, giving up chunks after missed tackles. Today, I would say it was more based on Cam Scadaboo kind of stepping out of tackles or creating contact and then being, guys slipping off of them. One thing I would say about the defense, in those 4th and short situations, there was 2 of them that I remember off the top of my head. One, they did like a little handoff to Wan'Dale Robinson. Another one was to Singletary. Anytime they have those little guys carrying the ball in 4th and 1 situations and you get an opportunity to make a play, you have to make those plays. It's one thing if it's Cam Scadaboo. We know he's a wrecking ball, right? And he's hard to get on the ground. And if he fights his way for a yard or a yard and a half, then so be it. But those little guys, like, you've got to make those plays. Like, to be a really, really good defense, you got to be able to get off the field in those situations. They were a lot better in 3rd down this week than in previous weeks. Obviously, the turnovers +5 is going to win you a lot of games. But to me, the thing that stood out was they were a lot less penalized this week than in previous weeks. And the pass rush, while it wasn't really there for about 3/4 of the game, 4th quarter and especially late in the game, they were getting home. Now, there was the one personal foul or roughing the passer that I 100% do not believe was a roughing the passer on Carl Granderson. Like, and if anything, like, I could see if he made the same exact hit and landed on top of the quarterback, but the fact that he didn't even fall down, well, I don't know what they want him to do. Like, what do they want him to wrap him up and then like just set him down nicely? Like, I don't really understand what they're looking for on that call. But defense, man, like, I think we knew coming into this year that the defense was going to have to lead the way with a young quarterback. And today, to me, was a great performance by them. And honestly, the offense let them down a little bit. And I think while it is a team game and everybody gets to celebrate in the win, if I'm a defender, I'm a little bit like, kind of, come on, like, we need you guys to start helping us out a little bit more. Because it honestly, if the offense takes 3 of those turnovers and turns them into touchdowns, we're talking about this game completely different, and the defense play a lot more relaxed as the game goes along. But hey, I mean, for a team that has struggled through the first 4 weeks to respond the way that they did on defense this week, I mean, 5 turnovers, man, it's rare. It doesn't happen all the time in the NFL. So hats off to them, and goes back to what I said in the first segment, like the response of the defense, and in particular, Kool-Aid McKinstry had the pass interference that I don't think was pass interference called on him early in the game, gave up the touchdown shortly after that. For him to just keep playing, a couple of PBUs, 2 picks, and numerous plays around the field. Like, I think he did a great job of showing that resolve and showing the player that we all thought that he would be after the training camp that he had this season.
Yeah, let's take a look. So the Saints, for the first fumble led to a field goal, which put them ahead, and then it was the fumble return touchdown, which was brought back by the defense. Interception, which led to a punt, which led to another interception, which led to a missed field goal, which led to the game, still not being put away until the last couple of drives. Like, it felt like there was definitely a chance to put away. I think, like you mentioned earlier, against a better team, if the offense plays like this, the +5 turnovers might not matter. So it's really interesting. But great day on the defense. I'm trying to think of any other standouts.
Yeah,
Latrell Burgess.
we're missing one. I think we haven't highlighted Jordan Howden enough, in my opinion, because Jordan Howden stepped in. He wasn't supposed to be here. I don't know how much he was practicing right with the first team, but we all thought Justin Reed would be the starter next to Jonas Sanker, and we put a lot of attention on the young Sanker, right? I think that we're all fans of him up here. By the way, Lance, it's almost time. It's almost your time. Neck roll is going to come into the game soon, right? It's almost your time. So I hope that you get to share my same excitement with my young player as you have with yours. But next to him was an aggressive Jordan Howden, a Howden game that was, of course, emphasized and stamped by his return for a touchdown. But he also had moments where he ran up. I thought he tackled well. I thought that he was around, and when he wasn't around, or excuse me, when he was around probably years ago or a couple of years ago, it was often with deficiencies in coverage. This time you saw him around making plays, whether that was close to the line of scrimmage, making a tackle elsewhere. There wasn't a lot of times when I pointed to Howden and was like, yeah, this is why you need to move on. I thought he had a really strong game. So in the midst of all of these players that we are highlighting defensively, I want to make sure that Howden gets his love for stepping into a spot that he wasn't supposed to be in, not just holding it down, but also excelling in making plays. So let's make sure that we give him that attention.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the plays, and specifically today, that we saw from Sanker and Jordan Howden was what we've been expecting from Justin Reed all season. Like, we were expecting him to be the one to come in, be the veteran presence, have those type of impact plays. It just hasn't happened yet. That doesn't mean it won't still happen. But once he was out of the game, and sometimes it takes a player being passed over and or benched to kind of get that fire back or realize, man, I can't take this for granted. Now I got to go out there and like really show my tail and make plays. And that's what Jordan Howden did today. I mean, like he was great. He was all over the field. And like you said, he's making tackles. He's showing up in the passing game. Like that to me is the reason why he was drafted here in the first place. But as great as it is to see those two playing well, it kind of shines a light on, Justin Reed basically being your only big time free agent that you signed this offseason, and he hasn't shown up yet. Hopefully, this concussion doesn't keep him out long, if at all, after this game. But he's got to play better, or the young guys are going to end up being the ones that are playing.
Yeah, you also Quincy Riley, first start, didn't hear much about him.
Well, to be fair, he didn't start. He didn't start. But he comes in whenever Alante goes to the slot. But he played 50-something snaps today, so basically a start.
Key defensive piece.
Yeah, and he was targeted 4 times, gave up 1 catch for 7 yards. As a rookie, I think he'll take that.
Love it.
I think he'll 100%. Take that. And really, shout out to some people. Cam Jordan and Chris Rumpf combined for 9 pressures. Between those, so Chris Rumpf had 4, Jordan had 5, Brian Persee had 3, Nathan Shepard, Jonathan Bullard had a couple. They were all getting in on the fun. Still not a great day for Pete Werner. He didn't have any terrible plays, but he did have missed tackle. Got beat a couple times in coverage. So overall, interesting day. But I think the biggest thing and the best thing is that it was the young players on the defense that are getting the most praise from this one, and I think rightfully so, and a great sign, because I feel like way more than the offensive side of the ball, you have a couple of young players emerging to be like, okay, these could be the cornerstones of their positions on defense for the next 4 or 5 years while they try and find their footing in this rebuild.
Yeah, and you talk about finding the footing. There's a lot of places where the Saints need help. So you're not going to be able to address every single one of them, even going into next year. So you're going to need some players who don't feel like absolute liabilities. So you're going to need some, and if they're young, you can see them grow, like a Quincy Riley, like a Kool-Aid McKinstry. We can see them try to grow throughout the process. So I do think that's important, because you might only be able to get an impact edge rusher next year. You might not be able to get an impact edge rusher and a corner, but you feel like you have some guys who can kind of be bridges in those positions. And I think that's important to note as well.
And who would have thought that the Saints would have the same record as the Baltimore Ravens through 5 weeks?
That's what happened when I think Casillas is on the sideline. I did not expect to see Casillas on the sideline. I was like, Oh wow, I forgot. I hadn't thought about him in years. And when I see him talking to Breeze, I say I knew the win was secured. That's the key. Just bring him on every game.
That'd be crazy. That'd be awesome. Oh man. All right. Well, let's jump over to the offensive side of the ball. Talk about what went right. Where they still need to make some moves. But overall, still just enjoying the first win of the season. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's group that moves the game forward is the New Orleans Saints defense. 5 turnovers? That's awesome. And it led to the victory. Demario Davis had the clutch force fumble in field goal territory that led to the Saints taking their first lead since week 1. Cam Jordan opened the second half by pouncing on the Jackson Dart fumble caused by Chase Young, apparently. They had Brian Brissy force a Cam Scatterboo fumble that was brought back for a touchdown by Jordan Howden. Kool-Aid McKinstry with the 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter. All around, the Saints defense kept the game moving forward for the Saints, and it led to the win, and they wouldn't have been able to do it without them. Because whenever you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, let's go over to the offensive side of things, see what happened there. Let's go with Lance. What are your biggest takeaways on offense right now?
I mean, we've been talking about it. I think that red zone is becoming an issue.
Yes.
To me, look, part of it is the quarterback for sure, but I think a lot of it is Kellen Moore and maybe being a little more cautious, it seems. And then, I mean, obviously he's the one calling the plays, but Rattler's the one that's pulling the trigger. I don't like when we get to like the high red zone that we're calling plays that are so far in front of the, we're throwing balls, I should say, because I don't know what plays he's calling, but we're throwing flat routes and check downs. And like, to me, you give yourself a better opportunity if you're throwing to or beyond the sticks and into the end zone to like score touchdowns, then throwing the ball at the line of scrimmage and hoping that AK and others can make people miss. Like that, to me, like the red zone play calling and or decision making by the quarterback, I think has to be better. I'm proud of the offensive line. Super proud. Like that group of pass rushers, that defensive front for the Giants is one of the best in the National Football League. Like that's one of the best groups that we're going to play the entire season. And for them to not give up a sack, to me, is pretty incredible. Sure, you'd love to run the ball better. I think what we had less than 3 yards per carry. That's not good.
No.
But again, in a game like that, it's not like you necessarily needed to have 200 yards rushing. Well, we obviously didn't because we won the game. But I want to. Sure, it's good to highlight all the good things that they did, but I also think it's important to make sure that everybody understands the things that they did poorly or the things that they need to improve on to be better, as the season goes along. The big play to Rashid Shaheed obviously made a lot of people happy. I was thinking that there was going to be one more of those big plays. If we flip it and say the scoop and score by by Jordan Howden was a big play, then I was right in my bold prediction. But that's
we'll let you have it. We'll let you have it.
Right.
We'll let you have it.
But we got to find a way to finish drives with touchdowns and not field goals. And that to me is the biggest takeaway of this game. But super happy that the offensive line played the way that they did. Super happy that the offense protected the football the way that they did. But still room for growth. I didn't really like the plan for Taysom Hill. 6 carries, -1 yards, -1 yard. Like that didn't. It looked like he hadn't played football in a little while. But it'll grow as the season goes along. And, I just think that there's a lot of meat left on that bone for this offense to be better than what it is today. I don't know that it's going to be great ever, but I do think that they can play better than they have played.
And I think it is important to point out, even though it's not technically, it's not an offensive issue, but whatever Blake Groupie is playing like he's playing, you really can't afford to settle for field goals or play
Correct.
for field goals, because right now Groupie is 10 of 15, I want to say, on the year, which is not good. It's just no way to spin it. That's a big enough sample size to have plenty of red flags raised around the kicker's performance. It's 67% through 5 weeks. 4 of 6 in this game. It's completely, yeah. What were you saying?
Are there any other kickers in the league that have 5 misses like that? That would be something.
I'll go look at that now.
I mean, you can't miss.
I'll build on both of those things. I think when you have a kicker who, and I don't know how long he's going to be here, I really do think there's going to reach a point where we have to say enough is enough. But when you have a kicker who is struggling and he's not dependable, you don't want to rely on field goals. But to add to your point, Lance, these are the red zone stats through the season. So this week, this week they were 0 for 3. Because their one touchdown was a bomb. But when you get into the red zone, no touchdowns. Last week they were 2 for 3, but you know that one time that they missed, the silly special, where you like, man, why are you even doing this? Yep. Against Seattle, 1 for 3. They had a really strong performance against San Francisco in which they were 3 for 3 that game, and that was impressive. But before that, against Arizona, they were 1 for 4. So what you're seeing is 2 games with strong efficiency, turning red zone opportunities into touchdowns. But I would say the red zone performance against Buffalo, which is one of those 2 games, is kind of marred by the fact that you had a questionable play call in many people's eyes. And where it's like, man, you're getting the flow. You're moving downfield. Why try something cute here? So that's, in general, I would say one game where you really feel like you walked away satisfied with what you did in the red zone. So 1 of 5 is that's not what you want. So that's just kind of to build back to your point on what you're saying about turning red zone opportunities into touchdowns. One of the things with the offense that I think also you wanted to see more of is obviously just running the football. You ran it a decent amount. I got to see the exact numbers. I feel like you ran the ball about 25 times between you 2 running backs, maybe. Let me check before I just say something that's completely crazy. Kendra had 10. Yeah, that was completely crazy. 10 by Kendra and 8 by Alvin. I thought that you got a little bit higher than that, but.
Well, and Taysom had 6 carries himself.
Dylan, you're muted.
I'm okay. Muted, man.
No, I did half of my post-game show yesterday muted. So I was scared when I saw Dylan talking, and I was like, oh no, is something going on with my sound? Did my microphone cut out? Like I was about to panic. But yes, so when you add Taysom's rushes, that ends up getting to 25. The QB power wasn't as effective as it usually was. So maybe that just needs time to get everything together on that. But yeah, I think there's no bigger point to improve upon than your red zone efficiency. So I wanted to go ahead and pull those stats for all 5 games.
And while we're talking about stats, I can't say for certain just because there's, waiting on this week to update, but I'm 99% sure no team has missed 5 field goals yet other than the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah. So, I mean,
the second most is the Tennessee Titans, which is 10 of 14. Right. And that's not who you want to model your game around. So
if Sean Payton was the coach of this team, they would have taken Blake Groupie's jersey from him in the locker room today. They wouldn't even have waited. They wouldn't have waited till tomorrow to cut him. He'd be gone.
Blake Groupie's highlight is diving for a tackle. Shout out to him on that. I'll show if you want to hear some Blake Groupie love on that return. He really sold out for it. Like, thumbs up to you. They say kickers only have one job. Not today.
It's clear to me that they like Groupie, and I think Groupie is seems to be a good locker room guy. But at some point, you got to wave him, move him to the practice squad, and give Charlie Smith a shot or something. If you want to keep him around the building or anything like that, or at least help him. That'll also leave it up for him to get another shot somewhere. But it just something has to change at some point, because 10 of 15 is crazy. No matter how good of a teammate you are,
it's. Sure, it's a team and it's a game. It's a business first. This is a high performance business. And if you are not performing at a high enough level, like Darian said, at some point, enough it's got to be enough. We have another kicker. Obviously, he's on the practice squad, but we have another kicker who I think through the preseason showed that he's got the ability to be a starting kicker in the NFL. Love Blake Groupie or hate him, he's not performing to a certain standard.
That's it.
And you don't have to keep him in the building, right? There's only 32 of these jobs in the world. Like, not just in the NFC, in the world. There's 32 starting kickers in the NFL. And if you can't live up to being one of those starters, you gotta go. There's not this type of a leash for any other position in the National Football League. If a receiver has 5 drops, he's getting either benched or cut. That's just what it is. Like, you cannot do it. And it's gonna be covered up a little bit by the win. And he made 4 field goals, but what if they lost this game and he was 4 for 6? Your energy toward him is going to be way different if this team ends up losing this game by a field goal or a point or something. Like, to me, I never am excited about somebody losing their job. That was me. I was cut 5 times in my career, but at some point the decision makers have to make a decision and say, look, we got to try this other guy out. Like, we have another kicker. He's been here. He's for 2 years now. Like, at some point you got to give this guy a shot because the starter is not living up to the standard that not just we have for him, but he should have for himself.
Yeah, and you know what? I want to address that real quick because I'm over here getting antsy as he's talking, right? Like, I'm getting antsy hearing Lance. The score, the Saints had a 12-point lead. You missed that field goal. Now 2 touchdowns beat you. It didn't happen. So we're not talking about the ramifications of it, but the potential ramifications was instead of needing a touchdown and then another touchdown with a 2-point conversion, instead of needing that to come back and beat the Saints, 2 touchdowns with no 2-point conversions being required could have beat the Saints. And I'm not in the business of just because it didn't happen, it didn't matter. No, I feel like too many times I've seen Blake Groupie struggle when stakes are even semi-high. Like, this wasn't a game winner, but this was a opportunity to put the game at a larger distance, and he didn't come through. And you know what? I felt like he wasn't going to come through. It's no surprise. You have some kickers where it's like, oh, man, we wish you would have made that. We didn't see that coming. I saw it coming. But you know what? Let's pivot to something a little bit better. Kendre Miller, I thought this was interesting, and I want to pose this to you. On Big Friday, you see Kendre Miller have more touches, more rushing attempts than Alvin Kamara. After last week having a pretty strong game, I can't help but wonder if this is something that, if this means anything. I'm not saying it means he's taking over as the top guy, but does it mean anything? Does it mean that we're going to see Kendre as a more feature piece of the running attack? Does it mean that on any given week we could see Kendre lead the team in rushing? Like, I just wonder how you guys view the fact that he got more rushing attempts than Alvin Kamara.
Ride the hot hand.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I don't think it's as big of a deal because a bulk of his carries were late in the game. 4th quarter carries, Saints up by 2 scores. We're going to hand the ball off. But I do think there's something to seeing him more involved week in and week out, like in the energy that he provides, the tough runs that he's making. Like, I do think we will see more of him, but I'm not going to read into him having more carries today. I mean, that's a thing that coaches do all the time. We're going to get our older, more experienced guy and more important guy, if we're being honest, out of the game. Let's get our young legs in there, give him some more touches. But I do think that the productivity that he's had will lead to him having more opportunity as the season goes along. I mean, and especially in the short term, because being able to have 2 backs that can make plays for you is super important. But I won't read into the fact that he ended up having 1 or 2 more carries than AK today.
And Alvin got more touches if you combine the receiving attempts. So I do want to make sure that I was specifying rushing attempts, of course, but I don't want the wrong picture to be painted. So
I feel like we know AK is not going to care that Kendra had the more carries or whatever than him this week, because those carries did come in the fourth quarter when the game was kind of over and they just wanted to run the ball out. AK is like, you know what, you don't need me to break one. I'll go sit real quick while Kendra gets beat up running up the middle every down. I don't think he's gonna complain. But overall positive, I think, is how I would feel, even with it being those late quarter carries. They're trusting Kendra Miller with the ball. That is something that we could never at one point say about the last, coaching staff, offense, or head coach. They're trusting Kendra with the ball with more touches, and I think that's a positive sign, because right now he looks like the running back of the future of this team. Like, next year's team, like, even if AK doesn't stay another year, whatever happens, I personally think he should. I don't see the point in trading him, but I think that Kendra could be the lead back like next year. It's interesting. I think very positive momentum for him this season, and if he didn't have it, he would have been gone. So great timing for him. Yep. All right. Well, let's we've talked offense, we've talked defense. Let's bring them together, talk about our players of the game. And if you have any chat questions, go ahead and drop them in. You can use hashtag they finally won to drop up any questions that you have for our last segment. We'll try to get to a couple coming up next. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed live lines during the games. Like this week, I didn't do any live betting on this game, but I did put down I had Cam Scatterbo with 50 rushing yards, easy. Chris Olave, 40-plus receiving yards, easy. And I also threw in Rashid Shaheed to have at least a 15-yard reception, and he answered that one really quickly with that 87-yard bomb. That was, fun to watch. Think that you know what's going to happen in the game? What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today to get started. And if your first $5 bet wins, that's $300 in bonus bets. All right, wrapping it up today. Let's get to our players of the game. If you have any questions, you can drop them in. Hashtag they finally won. All right, let's get to players of the game. Let's get with Darian. Or Darian, you're muted. You're muted. Ha 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 ha.
Got your back.
It's called a callback. All right. See, now that's for my people who've been here all day. And I was referencing the last live show. It was live. It over some people's head. That's okay. Funny to me. But no, but seriously, I'm gonna avoid Kool-Aid McKinstry because I want to go with somebody that you brought up earlier, and Dylan really made me think about this player that I wasn't really considering. That's Bryan Bresee, who had a strong day in the run game, which is something you're right, we don't normally say about him. So that's defying an expectation. He had a nice pass breakup at the line of scrimmage. He forced the fumble that was then returned for a touchdown, and he got a hit on the quarterback as well. I thought that he had a really complete game. And as far as young pieces, a lot of times, because he doesn't play a premier position, we're not talking about him on the interior. But this is a guy who had the most sacks on the team last year. He's a guy who needs to continue to be disruptive. He's somebody who we wanted to see take another step. And these are the type of games that you want to see. You want to see him when the team's trying to run the ball in his direction, not be a liability. That way he can be more of a 3-down player and not just be a pass rush specialist. You want to see him get hands up, right? Because I can't remember exactly which play it was. I do remember him getting the knockdown, but I don't know if there was anything open behind. But it's those type of plays that stall out an offense, stall out a drive. These are the plays that we don't really discuss a lot. And I think he was a player with a performance we probably wouldn't discuss a lot. So I wanted to make sure I highlight him. And he made a couple of standouts. So that's my player of the game, Bryan Bresee.
That's a good one. I think that's one.
Shout out to you though, Dylan. Shout out to you. I wouldn't even have thought of that if you hadn't said it. So
let's go. Shout out. You know what? I think it's just finally time that I get my flowers. Lance,
yeah, Dylan, talk.
Lance, who are your players of the game?
Hey, players. I like that.
We all heard it.
Said that.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned it earlier. It's the offensive line. Like a group like that on the New York Giants front four in specific, 4 or 5 guys, like to give up 0 sacks to me is incredible. And I think I saw somebody in the comments earlier say is all you got to do is get rid of Ruiz from the starting offensive line and look how well they played. Like, sure, you'd love to get more out of the running game. And specifically late in the game to be able to kind of like run the clock out and not have to worry about putting your defense back on the field. But again, to me, it's that pass rush and being able to neutralize that pass rush. There were times when they got pressure, but the fact that they were never able to get home against Rattler, to me, is a great sign for this offensive line of them kind of starting to gel together and gives us, I think, a look into what we can see from them going into the future. I mean, these guys are, the group that's kind of been criticized as much as anybody throughout the entirety of this season. So the first 4 games, there was glaring issues up front. And we weren't talking about there being a lot of that in this game, really not much at all. Sure, there was a couple of negative plays, and especially early on in this game. But the fact that, they were able to kind of hang in there and do their thing and really neutralize that front of the New York Giants, to me, I think there were some easy picks as far as players of the game goes. And I feel like this one is one that was probably a little more hidden, but one that definitely needed to be highlighted.
Yeah. Well, before I get to my player of the game, I have to take a real quick sip real quick. I mean, it's Kool-Aid. It's got to be Kool-Aid McKinstry for me. 2 interceptions. He had by far his best game of the year. We've spent weeks talking about how, Aikiata was getting picked on. We need to be better there. But Kool-Aid was not looking like Kool-Aid for the first couple of weeks. And I feel like maybe, hopefully this gives him the confidence to come back and like, what, I'm him. I'm that guy. I'm I'm cornerback 1. I'm going to come lock up your top guy. He had a 2 interception game that I feel like can do a lot for the confidence of a DB. He had, and not only 2 interceptions, he also had a pass breakup. And he, was targeted 9 times, only gave up 5 catches. That's, his lowest completion percentage allowed or whatever for this season. So I think all around great game for Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think the Saints really need someone to step up and look like a true starter, a true number 1 at cornerback. And he did it this week. And with, Quincy Riley on the other side stepping up, and then Alante Taylor not missing tackles and looking solid in the slot, I think that right there is your blueprint for a starting secondary this season. So I think that it's finally happening. It's finally come together. And I think that, have to shout out Kool-Aid in this one.
Well, hey, one thing that I saw in this game that I feel like we hadn't seen as much this season is their technique. Their technique was great today.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was impeccable. Like if the receiver had hands on, the DB is allowed to have hands on as well, as long as you're finding the football. Like that to me is the way that the game is supposed to be played. Not just the technique when the ball is in the air, but being in position when the ball is in the air, being in the position to make plays, not giving up a whole lot of catch and run to the Giants receivers and tight ends. Like that to me was you could tell that they've been coached up on trusting their technique and playing with that proper technique. It really showed today.
Yeah, I thought you guys had some great players of the game. I like that Lance and I went more like underground, and then you had Dilly go with kind of a mainstream guy with Kool-Aid. I thought it was a really good blend of options. I'm going to throw one more guy out there, or one more tandem out there. I'm going to play the Lance card. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to go multiple players. All right.
You're good.
So I thought the safeties, like just the safety tandem where you go down, you lose Justin Reed. I've already highlighted that Jordan Howden came in and had a strong game, but you saw Jonas Sanker yet again. The amount of games when you're looking at Sanker, I think he's a really good representation of the year where you want to continue to see him build. You want to see him become a part of the rebuild. And I think through 4 games at this point, he's showing that he'll pop up on a weekly basis. He's showing that all of the people who considered him a steal in the draft in April, when we first were talking about it, this is the reason why. He's a guy who shows up, he comes down, I think it was one play where it was either him or Howden, but I'm pretty sure it was Sanker on the sideline, yet another pass breakup. He's always flying around. He made he was really Johnny on the spot with that fumble recovery. The safeties had a really good game on week 5. So I want to highlight them as, some honorable mentions.
Yeah, and I think we have some time for 1 or 2 questions. I'll get to one that stood out from Key GZ. Is the lack of offensive success in the red zone due to player personnel, poor quarterback play, or poor play calling? I would say yes.
Yeah.
I would say yes. It has been all 3 at times this season. For whatever reason, in the red zone, you can never get anyone. You can't get all sides of the offense working at the same time. It's either a dropped pass, a missed throw, or the silly special. Literally, it's everything happening in over there. So
one more, Devon Vele. I think he's the guy. Like I thought Johnson could be, but I just don't know if that's going to be his role. But Vele, the size, like guys like Olave, guys like Shaheed, I just think that Vele of that bunch is best utilized in the red zone. I don't know how much he's been on the field in that area, but it just feels like he's the missing piece, or he was supposed to be the missing piece to the red zone efficiency, and he just hasn't been.
Yeah, he had you can't really check red zone stats specifically right now, but he was, it was good to see him a little bit more overall. You make a trade for Devon Vele, and then you don't really hear his name called for 4 weeks on this team. You're really like, so why did you make that trade? Exactly what it. Yeah, but I like it. I like it so far.
I think them being able to run the football a little bit in the red zone would help open up the passing game as well as the playbook. If you're 3rd and longs in the red zone, 2nd and longs in the red zone, you're not going to be running the football. Therefore, the defense knows you're going to be throwing the football. So they're going to play a defense that's going to stop the plays behind them and into the end zone. So I think that's an important thing. I remember back to my days with Sean Payton, like that was always kind of a big thing or a part of the game plan going into the games is hey, we can run the football in this red zone area, and that's going to open up stuff for us in the passing game. You can't have anything off the play action in the red zone if you can't run it. So I think that'll help out as well. And at some point, Kellen Moore is going to have to let the playbook open up, and Spencer Rattler in turn is going to have to let it fly as far as trying to get the ball and push the ball into the end zone.
Yeah. All right, let's do from LJ. How's Godshaw been? I haven't heard his name much. Well, his role in the defense is kind of one where you kind of don't hear his name called a ton, the nose tackle run stopper. I'd say he hasn't been fantastic. He hasn't been a standout run defender this year. I haven't, watched a bunch of plays and been like, man, Godshaw really messed up. But kind of like we were talking about with Justin Reed, it's, not really standing out in a good way either. So that's where I would put Godshaw so far on this defense. All right. Fine.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I don't think there's too much to add. That's a perfect description.
Yeah, he's been solid. Let's see. We had another one here. Where was it?
Are you avoiding the one that says they want you in a Kool-Aid outfit?
They didn't use the hashtag, so that one's not getting acknowledged. Do y'all think Chase Young makes a difference if he does or when he does hit the field? It's a big if right now, or a big question mark of whenever he does. You have to hope he makes at least some sort of impact because you just paid him that money. And then he misses the first 5 games at least. And then if he comes back and makes a non-factor, that's going to be even more of a confusing extension than it was in the first place.
I think I think Chase Young makes an impact when he returns to the field, but I just don't think it's the impact everybody is wanting. I think he does improve the pass rush, but I don't think he takes it up notches or he becomes the dominant pass rusher that this defense is missing. So, yeah, he makes an impact, but probably not the one who the person's asking is really looking for.
Yeah. Oh, and I see some late questions coming in from the chat, but as time would have it, we're out of time for today's episode. Thank you for listening to the Saints Squad Show. You can check out me, John, and me, Lance, and Darian at our socials for the latest. You can check in with Locked On Saints with your host Ross Jackson for the latest on all Saints news. But until then, we'll be right back here on Wednesday to talk a little bit more about this win and then start prepping for the next Saints win. And Ross, we're closing the show right now. Any last words?
Nope.